Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we are talking about pity marketing and the insustainability of using the tactic of pity marketing to make sales as an author. So I want to say up front that I'm going to be talking about instances that I've seen of this, but I'm not going to be naming names because it's not really the point here. I want to sort of generalize this and give examples without giving examples. So giving examples of the actions rather than the people specifically doing this, just so that we can stay on the topic more specifically, have the conversation around pity marketing rather than having the conversation on the people doing it and all that comes with them. I hope this video encourages people who thought maybe pity marketing was a good idea to not do that, because I think that if you survey the broader reading community on the internet, they're going to tell you that this is one of the most despised tactics by the actual reading community. But I will say that marketing is really hard on authors, and it's not just hard on indie authors, it's hard on traditionally published authors. The amount of money that traditional publishing has that they could invest into their authors that they just decide not to use that funds for is abominable. So authors are put in this position where it's basically like you promote your books or nobody promotes your books. And I am understanding of that. I am compassionate towards the authors experiencing that. I think that the publishers should be doing better because they were the ones that invested in you. They're the ones likely reaping the most of the money from the work that you've put in, and yet they don't want to invest that back into you and still make you work for it. But let's define our term first and foremost. So pity marketing in the context of book sales is a strategy intended to promote the sales of a book that intentionally centers on an author's personal hardship or hardships if they create multiple pieces of content saying a new hardship has popped up, or sometimes they'll just stick with one and they will run ads saying the same thing over and over again. An example of this is Book Talk hates my book because insert reason here. And this experience of the author being a victim of something, be it Book Talk hates my book, or my publisher did this to me, only to find out that that's not exactly true, or a bookstore did such and such to me, only to find out that that's not true. But using these stories, which often turn out to be fabricated, or at least told in a way that is misleading, leaving out key context, using this as a primary driver for sales. A common tactic that you'll see is they'll lead up front with this, where they'll say, X did Y to me about my book. This is really painful for me as an author who wrote a book about insert plot here, rather than leading with, hi, I'm so-and-so and I wrote a book about XYZ. The narrative isn't buy this book because I think you'll love it. The book is secondary to what happened to the author. Buy this book because I'm failing or somebody else is failing me and your purchase will alleviate my suffering. This is not to be confused with like genuine author transparency around experiences of having canceled booked events like what happened with New Kid by Jerry Craft and Everything Grows in Judu's Garden by Janan A. Matari, I think is her last name. And it's not to be confused with examples of publishers actually doing underhanded things to their authors and an author coming forward about that. I think that those things being talked about is important so that the reading community knows what's going on behind the scenes, especially in the wave of censorship and soft censorship that we're currently seeing. It's very important that we learn when book events are canceled, like what happened with Everything Grows in Judu's Garden. There's a distinction between talking about things that occurred to fix those things and saying, this thing occurred, so buy my book, especially when the thing that occurred often didn't happen the way that it is being portrayed. Marketing is really difficult. I completely understand that. One thing that may be able to help you market your book is a website, which you can do with the help of today's sponsor, which is Squarespace. If you need a place where everything about you and what you create is collected all nice and organized for your audience to easily find and interact with, Squarespace can help you do that and help you make any kind of website that you're looking to create in order to stand out and find your audience. Squarespace is an all-in-one website building platform that makes it easy for you to have a beautiful and professional looking website of your own for you to create or sell or just talk to your audience in blog format. Maybe you're a crochet nerd looking to showcase your patterns, or you're an author looking to showcase your books, or you're an editor looking to showcase your services, or you're just a reviewer like me. Anything that you do, Squarespace can help you showcase it and market it, whether that's your goods, your services, or just yourself. My website is readswithrachel.com. It has all the places that you can find me, info about my book club, a contact form, FAQs, and Squarespace made this so easy for me to put together. I have no website design experience. They have customization tools, so I just click on what I want and it appears. You can make your website according to your preferences and needs, even if that means selling your merchandise. If you have no experience in selling merchandise, that's not a problem, neither do I. Squarespace makes it so easy. They have e-commerce tools and a custom merch service, so you don't have to worry about putting together things yourself or worry about the production or the shipping. So whatever your online presence is or your business is, or maybe both, Squarespace can help you organize it, market it, and help you find your audience and your place on the internet. For a free trial, go to squarespace.com, and when you're ready to launch, you can use the QR code on the screen or go to squarespace.com/readswithrachel for 10% off your first domain or website. That's squarespace.com/readswithrachel. The link is down below, and thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. So I actually talked a little bit about a recent example of pity marketing. I decided to now private the video because after I saw what was happening in my comments, despite the fact that I did not use names, I did not use hashtags, I didn't even say anything in the caption of the video, and yet the video got 100,000 views and really weird comments. The comments started to remind me of that scene from the new Superman movie, you know, the one with the monkeys.
Just my monkey bots here farming outrage 24/7, trashing you online.
It almost felt like people, and I don't think that this actually happened, it just felt that way. It felt like people were fed what to say and they showed up and they said it. And they all said the same thing, which was really odd. Now, I don't think that that actually happened. I think what is actually happening here is just the rise of anti-intellectualism. I'm not calling anybody stupid. I'm just saying I think that that's what's going on here. Because the arguments that were being made were in such bad faith and had absolutely nothing to do with what I actually said. But we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk about what pity marketing actually looks like before we get into what I observed in my own comment section. Because part of this is starting to recognize those very formulaic set patterns in the narrative. Sure, you'll see it in the comments of people arguing with you if you talk about pity marketing, but you'll also see the patterns in the people doing the pity marketing. And that's one of the most recognizable traits that it is pity marketing, is the repetition of it. I also should probably say that this is not unique to the book community. You'll see a lot of pity marketing going on right now, and AI is being used, AI is being used a lot in order to generate fake pity marketing schemes. But I'm just going to talk about it within the context of the book community because I've seen it probably 4 times over the last year. But other people are telling me that they know people who regularly do pity marketing that doesn't go viral. So one of the things that people brought up to me was they noticed that, and it's normally authors telling me that their author mutuals are doing something called the zero sales gambit. So an author will show that they are experiencing being a commercial failure by showing screenshots of empty dashboards, showing no Amazon sales this month, or I haven't sold a book this week, this month, this year. After a while, you notice that the people will talk about what their book is about less and less and less. They are simply framing their work as unwanted and their efforts as fruitless. Again, I think it's okay for authors to talk about when this happens to them, but using it as a marketing tactic is different. You can tell who is using it as a marketing tactic versus who is just talking about the experience itself. Because normally the authors I follow and I interact with who talk about, oh, dang, no Kindle sales this month, this really sucks, no page reads. I also know what their book is about because they've up to this point talked about what their book is actually about and shared their passion for it. Which is a lot different than getting video after video, seeing somebody say, nobody wants my book, nobody wants to read my book, I have no sales again this week. But while that tactic isn't working on me, it does work to get a couple of sales here and there. And I think that I have to assume that they think that long term they're going to garner more and more sales if they could just get a video to go viral talking about the lack of sales. And they don't have to talk about a personal tragedy in order to get sales, or talk about being the victim of somebody being bigoted towards them or a publisher being unfair. All they have to do is be like, no sales, guess nobody wants my book. It's simple, it's clear, it presents an immediate solution that all people have to do is add the book to the TikTok shop, purchase, and then they've fixed your problem for you. The problem is that long term, which is the problem with all pity marketing. Long term, this is not going to do what you're hoping it's going to do. And then again, another example of this is leveraging personal tragedy or being the victim of something else. One example I can think of, and again, we're not naming names today, but there was an author this year who said, the left hates my book. I even personally got a message from somebody, this author who wanted me to help her because she was experiencing review bombing. No, she wasn't. What she was experiencing was backlash because she is an outspoken Trump supporter, and people decided to basically say fuck off in her comments, and she decided to try to leverage that. And I don't know why I don't know who referred her to me. She was referred to me apparently by somebody. I don't know what jokester decided to do that to her, but she was trying to like appeal to, my good nature and help her out in order to make sales. And then after I told her in video format, hey, that's not what I do here, she transitioned over to saying, well, the left is bullying me and the left is so intolerant. My books have been banned, she said. No, they haven't. Another big example of pity marketing that we are seeing is staged failure. So this is, and you only find out about this in the comments because this even works on me. You'll see typically an older person. This has also worked on my husband. You'll see an older person sitting at a table inside of a bookstore and nobody is there to get copies of books signed. It's a fabrication. It is a fabricated professional disaster for a viral moment. And I'm not saying, again, these things genuinely do occur, but we are finding out that more and more people's good nature is being appealed to, and people are starting to set these stages up so that people will get sales via pity marketing. But the problem is that once the broader reading community figures this out, they're not going to read your books. They're going to stick them in a little free library, never to be seen by the person who, pitied you in the first place again. They're going to start telling their friends that, they were taken in by pity marketing, and then you're not going to get organic readership. And really, that's like the overall problem here, is that exploiting the audience's goodwill will only get you so far. If you want a lasting audience, you have to write a good book and get it to its actual readers, the people who are going to love it. And this isn't like a linear thing, like you're gonna beat bop around quite a bit in order to get there. It's just part of the experience of being an author, but you don't take a shortcut by pity marketing because your sales will run out. People's goodwill will run out. This is sort of similar to the previous person I mentioned who felt like she was unfairly targeted and review bombed. No, she wasn't. There's many, many examples of authors who claim that they have been unfairly maligned. And typically what they will do is either they will reframe standard industry hurdles, legitimate negative reviews. I just saw something like this the other day, professional criticism, etc., as discrimination, personal attacks. There was an example of somebody who, I'm not even sure if this was a full fabrication or not, but she claimed to have gotten a phone call saying, well, we loved your book, but we're not going to publish you. And that's not really how getting picked up by a publisher works. And so you're watching her face fall on this phone call and people are like, hey, that's not really how querying works. Is this even real? So sometimes it's not even standard industry practice. Sometimes what's happening is that people who don't know what standard industry practice is are being pitched to that this thing happened that couldn't have happened because the industry simply doesn't work that way. But then there's, of course, the authors who say that negative reviews are a form of punishment, portraying readers and reviewers as bullies, which can, depending on how large the platform of the author is, lead to the reviewer themselves getting harassed, their reviews being reported. This has happened to me tons of times. I've gotten tons of my reviews reported on Goodreads. This tactic seeks to rally a defensive fan base that will regurgitate your arguments for you and will also purchase the book in an act of solidarity against a perceived injustice. And the people engaging in this, the people who bought your book and defended you, feel like they have done a morally right thing, when really all that they've done is discourage legitimate critique and created an environment where readers will not read that book anymore. It's just going to be bought by fans of the person rather than fans of the story. And that is not a long-term strategy for making an audience that lasts, that loves your work, because eventually that fieriness in them to defend you all the time is gonna run out. Social media has made it so that pity marketing is what it is. The algorithms are designed to create a very fertile environment for this kind of thing to thrive. TikTok especially is a problem for pity marketing. I mean, I view it as a problem. The people benefiting from pity marketing don't view it as a problem, and certainly neither does TikTok, because they're also making money off of it. My issue with pity marketing is that I just don't think it's right to the consumers. When they're not lying, when they're not being misleading, it's just annoying. When I think it's wrong is when they are saying that something happened that either didn't happen or didn't happen the way that they are portraying it in order to have this like perceived idea of what happened that was terrible. That causes people to take up arms. That causes people to feel very emotionally swindled into supporting them. The misleading, the untruths are when I think it is wrong. When there's no untruths to it, I think it's just annoying, but I guess not like morally wrong. But TikTok thrives on this kind of content that will create high levels of engagement. And again, like even me talking about an example of pity marketing, TikTok decided to put that in the feeds of 100,000 people with no hashtags, no context, nothing. I thought when posting it that it would just end up in the feed of people who are following me and who already know what I'm talking about, but it broke containment in a way I was really shocked by, and that just went to show how much TikTok thrives off of this. They have created an algorithm that just knows which things are emotionally charged enough, without even naming names, hashtags, nothing, to put in the feeds of people that will become part of the conversation around these like narratives of, struggle and failure. It's so good at capturing user attention and promoting interaction. So I understand why authors feel like, oh, I need to do that kind of marketing, because of course a video of a tearful author at an empty book signing, or a tearful author saying my book has been banned, or a tearful author saying no bookstore wants my books, the left is censoring me, or this reviewer is punishing me by giving my book 2 stars. Of course, those very like emotionally charged things are going to do better in the algorithm, the way the algorithm is set up, than a standard professionally produced book advertisement. And that sucks. It sucks that the algorithm is like that. The other thing, the big thing here is that this would not work without parasocial relationships. Now, some of them have not found that very much, the people doing the pity marketing, and some of them have found it very strongly, and they know that they can make sales off of it and basically not have to do any work to defend themselves, because the parasocial relationships that they formed with these people mean that the people will do it for them. Followers feel a one-sided sense of intimacy and connection with a creator, and this happens like across, like not just with authors, it happens with many creators. Like just look at what happened when anybody said anything about Taylor Swift's new album. How many Swifties showed up to make that comment, oh, that one song is about you, girl? Like, what are we doing? The blurring of the lines between professional and personal is a key piece of pity marketing. It stops feeling like a advertisement to people who have formed that bond with the creator, and more like a friend asking for help during a crisis, like appealing to your friendship. And again, the platform's design absolutely encourages this dynamic. You're not even feeling like a consumer anymore. You feel like you are part of a community, but you are being marketed to. And in my opinion, you're being marketed to in a way that is not fair to you. But I also have to say that what is frustrating about this is that it feels like, in the case of certain authors who are doing this over and over and over to millions of followers, and I can name at least 2 of them, they have created for themselves, along with the TikTok algorithm who promotes this, a performance space where the ability to create like a narrative of being attacked in the short form is more valuable now is more valuable of a marketing skill specifically than the ability to write a compelling book and sell it. But the problem again is that this is temporary. This is a temporary solution. Redirecting pity and guilt into a commercial transaction will only work so many times before eventually people will feel that their empathetic impulses are being exploited. Eventually people will feel that they are being manipulated. That's what makes this strategy for marketing ultimately self-defeating. What you'll see is that if you bring up a person who has done this, you'll find that your comments end up with people telling you, oh, I started to get red flags around such and such time, because typically these are like ongoing incidents of behavior. And so what you'll see is in your comments, people will say, I started getting red flags around this piece of their behavior, this point of the behavior. People start to feel emotionally drained, pick up on the repetition that we talked about earlier, the repetitive. They're like, wait, I've heard this from them before, didn't I? How could it have possibly happened twice? And what ends up happening is people unfollow or they mute, because pity marketing tends to make people exhausted. So even if they bought your book once, unless they are one of those rabid fans who starts feeling like very compelled to do justice on your behalf, they're going to feel like, why did I ever buy that book? And that's what I was seeing in my comments, was people saying, I started to get red flags around such and such time, and or people saying, oh, I bought this book the first time, I'm not going to get swindled again. So again, this is not like a long-term strategy because you've burnt so many bridges. And then when people find out that the story being told is misleading, the exhaustion, it goes from pity to exhaustion to anger. And so pity marketing ends up making you trade long-term career viability for the potential of a few short sales bumps over the period of a year or 2 years. But it comes at a very irreversible cost of loss of trust within consumers. Ultimately, this is going to lead to a professional dead end. The best way to secure a long-term career in publishing as an indie publisher, if you're self-published, is not to erode reader trust and professional credibility. It's to create products that your audience genuinely loves and to create a shared experience about the love of a story. And once you do this so many times, even if you secure another book deal, what's going to end up happening is that more and more and more of your book deals you're going to feel like, even if you go from and I've seen this, self-publishing to traditionally publishing, you're going to have lost your loyal fan base. You've built an identity, a brand identity built on failure. And that's a perception that is really difficult to reverse, because ultimately the reader is still buying a product that is a story. And if the story is no good, it's going to sit on their shelf and be a reminder of the experience that happened to you. And they're not likely to pick up the next book. So ultimately, pity marketing is just self-sabotage, because the sales that you're getting, even if you're getting them in spurts because you upload another video, you take a video that performed well previously where you're talking about something terrible that happened to you and saying, buy my book at the end, and then you repurpose that video into an ad. This might create sharp, rises in sales intermittently, every once in a while, maybe around the holidays. But because there's no organic, genuine interest in the work itself, the interest is in helping you out, you haven't solidified the building blocks of a quality long-term career as an author, which is readers who are loyal to your work, not what happened to you. The majority of readers, not the flying monkeys on computers, but the majority of readers who buy books out of pity on an impulse are unlikely to become repeat customers. They did what they needed to do with the initial purchase. They're not going to keep coming back. The majority of them, that is. And I really don't think that the majority of people who are pity buying books are reading them. Again, this has happened to my own husband. He felt really bad for a guy who said that he experienced he had nobody show up to his book signing. My husband was like, oh, I feel bad. And I bought the book. It comes in the mail. And I'm like, what is this? I didn't have the heart to tell him, hey, I think you kind of got scammed here. You've heard the term auto buy author. There is no auto buy author for pity marketing. If you slap, I don't know, if you slap Elizabeth Acevedo's name on any book, I'm going to auto buy it because she has laid the groundwork being an exceptional author, creating 5-star stories. I know I can go to her to rely on a quality product. Pity marketing does not lead you to becoming an auto-buy author. The best you can hope for, and this is kind of sad, is fans who get really parasocial and create shrines to your books in your house, in their houses, and go online and argue with the reading community on your behalf and regurgitate the same arguments over and over and over. And I'm just not sure that that's really the kind of following that you really want to cultivate as an author. And setting aside the fact that that's a shitty, community to cultivate, it's again not a viable business model. It is a frantic project to project scramble. And eventually it's not only going to burn out what little audience is willing to buy the book, it's going to burn you out too. I also think there's something to be said here that all of the people that I'm thinking of that have done this, and I keep thinking of more as I'm talking, every single person who has done this that I can think of is a white person. And publishing itself remains overwhelmingly white, which is actually an argument had by the one person who said that the left was coming for her book. She said that she didn't like DEI, and she was also saying, our agent's finally going to take on white books now. And I'm like, publishing is white as hell. The demographic reality demonstrates that whiteness is the unspoken default, actually. And I think that part of being the default comes with the privilege to be able to engage in such a thing as pity marketing in a way that should somebody who was not white try to do, they would not receive the same treatment, I don't think. And authors of color operate in a really difficult marketing landscape. Like I mentioned earlier, publishing does very little for its authors, traditional publishing that is. And I have seen time and time again how little publishing does for its authors of color. I mean, the amount of times that I have seen the same white story get special editions and sprayed edges and influencer marketing PR packages, but then an author will reach out to me and be like, I'm not even gonna get physical arcs, and it's non-white authors telling me this. Publishing is trash. Mari from My Name is Marinez has famously said, if publishing wanted to, it would, and she's correct. If publishing wanted to, it could do better by its authors of color, and it just doesn't. It could do better by all of its authors, and it just doesn't. It does more for a select few, which is really frustrating because publishing has way more resources to do not only right by the authors, but right by the readers and to make a quality product. And readers do deserve quality products. They deserve better than being pity marketed to with incorrect information, misleading versions of events that leave out key context in order to appeal to their good nature. Readers deserve good books, and an author deserves to have the chance to make their best product into something that they're really proud of, something that they don't feel like they have to pity market for. So I stopped filming this yesterday in a panic because I realized I needed to go pick up my kids. Like, I was already late for school pickup because I lost track of time talking. So I'm going to get into, I don't remember where I was, but I want to get into the piece talking about when an audience becomes very convinced that they are doing the righteous thing by defending people who use pity marketing, how that is a direct effect of pity marketing is some of your following, if you have a large enough following, is going to sort of take up your cause, especially in the cases of pity marketing when you have pity marketed based on misrepresenting events that have happened to make it look like somebody has attacked you. So what ends up happening is that and this has happened before where I have gotten comments, and also in the cases, there was a case last year with pity marketing where an author said that their publisher had told them basically, if you don't make sales, you're gonna be in trouble. And as the book community does, a lot of the book community, including agents and editors and people who work in publishing, said, hey, that's not how this works. Oh my gosh, I keep finding, this is a pedal from the Sleep Token concert. I keep finding these all over my house. Wearing a Sleep Token shirt. He's always with me. It's so weird. I think this might have been the one that fell out of Carlos's wallet. Babe, if you're watching, I found it. Okay, sorry. I'm driven to distractions. Ha! Sleep Token joke. What was I saying? Fuck. So what ends up happening is pity marketing causes people to take up the cause thinking that they are doing a righteous thing, especially when they have been misled about the events. There was the case with the author last year, and this author had also previously stated that they were being targeted not by publishing, but by somebody else because they are a queer author. Now, as a queer person, I am deeply compassionate towards my fellow gays. I understand completely how shitty it is to be treated subhuman for being queer. especially because I grew up in fundamentalism. So the ever-present threat of conversion therapy, yeah, it's like a lot of us have like PTSD from that shit. But also, even as a queer person, being gay does not absolve me of anything that I might do to somebody else, including other queer people or just not queer people, people of all groups. But pity marketing is a very specific set of events. So queer authors are under attack. I know this very deeply. I was just at my school board yesterday yelling at my superintendent because in my school district, we have a teacher who is a bigot who is still employed despite being complained about by parents, who says disgusting stuff all over her social media to her following of 100,000 people. She went into a school for training, a school that she does not serve. She took a picture of Transmission by Alex Birdie, which is a nonfiction memoir about Alex Birdie's experiences being a trans guy. She put this on Truth Social. It got picked up. It went to the Commissioner of Education, who bypassed local control and parental control entirely, tweeted at my superintendent and said, ban this book. My superintendent complied. And again, this bypasses local process, violates our process and our rights as parents, because it's supposed to go to a committee at the school level first and foremost. And instead they banned a book because it says trans on the cover. So just yesterday I went down and said, how many other books are you going to ban because they're about trans people? And I gave specific examples. I am in my community saying, hey, queer people are under attack, trans books are under attack, queer books are under attack, and I've been talking about this for years. So it's really interesting that people who don't know me, when I talk about a pity marketer, show up and they say the same things. And one of those things is, you're homophobic. And I'm like, who's homophobic? Saying things like, I can't imagine shitting on a queer and disabled person, which I am also gay and disabled. But when pity marketing happens, the more rabid fans who come out act like the person that they are defending, who would never give them the time of day, is the only queer person, is the only disabled person. We see this in the case of, I can think of two other cases where both the person was queer and disabled. Another author who got called out recently, the rabid defenders were saying, well, because this person is below the age of 25, you're being too hard on them. And this was like a consistent comment that a lot of us were getting. And the age has nothing to do with it, just like being queer has nothing to do with our critique of pity marketing. Misleading marketing tactics are not okay for 22-year-olds to do. They're not okay for gay people to do. I would know as a gay person, they're not okay for disabled people to do. Misleading marketing tactics is wrong no matter who does it. But the comments are so fascinating. You're a foul human for getting butthurt over a book just because it has a gay aspect. I'm literally gay. And I'm literally talking about gay books all the time, including ones that actually get banned. This creator is queer and disabled, so it looks like you're just being homophobic trash. How? All I said was I don't like the marketing tactic. So that was one recurring theme, was it just gets boiled down to you're homophobic. And I'm not even saying that the like rabid fans of authors or other influencers, well, like when an author becomes an author influencer, there's like a very specific thing. I'm not saying that this is the only community that does this, because again, I grew up fundy. I have in ways participated in this. We all have when we're part of a community that starts to get toxic. We all regurgitate information thinking that we can win arguments and further the cause that our community is a part of. A instance of this that you might have seen recently was with the No Kings protests. Right-wingers were coming out and the arguments are always bad faith and easily debunked, and yet they regurgitate them nonetheless. Like, that's what happens when these communities, like with the rise of anti-intellectualism. So with the No Kings protests, you would see, including in my own community, there was a Tampa No Kings protest. The comments, when a Tampa news organization talked about this, said, if he was a king, he actually wouldn't allow there to be a protest. And this was like the entire comment section, and people think, oh, gotcha. My community said this. It sounds right to me. I'm not going to think any further. I'm just going to regurgitate it no matter what anybody says, no matter the context. I don't care. I'm just going to say it. Zing, I win. And now I feel righteous, or I feel funny, or I feel like the person who's won. And that's sort of what we're seeing here. An example, if I thought harder, I could come up with a better example, but an example of what we did in the fundamentalism community, and this happens in my own comments, it happened to me last week. Whenever somebody would say that a Christian did something terrible, we feel the need to slide in there and say, well, that's not really Christians. because a Christian would have a relationship with Christ. It's not a religion, it's a relationship. And a real Christian wouldn't do X, Y, Z. And we're taught to regurgitate that over and over so that we can decide who's the real Christians and then exclude anybody who makes us look bad. So there's like some sort of, and I'm not smart enough to think of a better way to explain this, but there's some sort of overlap with like toxic community and anti-intellectualism on the rise that is crossing over here to create like that happening, as well as the factor of now we have social media, and that's just created a climate where it's happening all of the time. Another example of repeat feedback that I was getting in this post was, you're just mad that it's this person doing this marketing tactic. You think it's fine when other people do it, which is not true. I have talked about misleading marketing tactics over and over. So one of the things was, hating someone for using a sale pitch that works doesn't justify the hate here. You're allowed to be annoyed, but the pure hate and vitriol here is gross. The crime doesn't match the punishment at all. To be clear, I don't know what hate and vitriol they're talking about. I said I was uncomfortable, which is true. I am uncomfortable when consumers are misled. The example that I'm giving here is, we're saying something happened that didn't happen and following it up with, you're hateful, we need to be more loving. So that's the pattern of speech that we're seeing in these particular examples. So another one that I got that was similar was, it's not okay for this author to be turned down because he's part of the LGBTQ+. A book teaching it's okay to love anyone you want and be kind to everyone regardless of differences is what we need more of in the world. We need to spread love more, not hate and discrimination. Nobody said otherwise. Almost all of the people that I have seen talk about this guy's misleading marketing tactics agree with that. So what we're doing here is a straw man fallacy. And that's the only way that they can like win the argument, is to do fallacious arguments. The other common one was, again, we're just shitting on this person for marketing this way, but we allow other people to do it. Again, that's not true. We're acting like nobody's ever promoted their own creation or product on TikTok. Are y'all forgetting TikTok Shop became a thing for exactly that reason? It goes on to talk about like influencers. I am an influencer. I do, do I have my, my Magic Spoon bars in here? I normally have one while I'm filming. So I've worked with like Magic Spoon, which people get on my case about, but I genuinely like it. This video, if you're watching the public one, is a sponsored video. I work with Squarespace. I genuinely use Squarespace. I'm not against getting paid and influencing, as long as you're being honest about it. And so as an influencer, one of my things is I only take on sponsorships with companies that I actually use the product. That's like sort of like a bare minimum thing that most of us try to do. Nobody said it's bad to sell things. Again, this is a straw man argument. Nobody said that. So it started to sound like these were all the same person. It's all the same arguments. You're just mad at people for making money. Never said that. You're just homophobic. Definitely am not being homophobic. Regularly advocate for books written by my fellow queer people that are actually getting banned. You're just being hateful. We need more love and compassion in the world. All I said was I didn't like a marketing tactic. So again, going back to like, it reminds me of that monkeys thing in Superman. When we have multiple people coming in and making the same arguments over and over. And I don't think that it's a room full of, monkeys with little, Lex Luthor brain hats on. What? And I don't think that they are all the same person. I don't think that they're the authors themselves. But if they're all using these same arguments, they are getting them from somewhere. And typically it's a community that has been cultivated. And again, going back to, is this really the kind of community that you want to cultivate as an author? I'm not against authors marketing. You obviously have to, in this climate, go off, do your thing. What I'm saying is certain marketing tactics that are misleading are wrong and not fair to consumers. Social media encourages authors to market themselves, to make a brand out of themselves. And often what they have to do is do this through personality, sharing curated glimpses of their daily lives, moral stances, and their struggles, things that happen to them. And this creates this illusion of intimacy that transforms viewers into fans, into participants in this personal narrative. And when you have pity marketing in the mix, it can transform into something very toxic. So when controversy arises surrounding that, when you have people who are in the industry who know that what they're saying is not true, fans perceive any criticism of a marketing tactic or of the content of a book. If we're, talking about the case of, I'd have to do a different video on, you know, the right wingers who write racism, and then, you know, white women come out and they're like, you're book banning. It's like, nobody banned a book. We're just talking about this racist line. I'm not naming names for the rest of this video, but like specifically that happened with like Tilly Cole. But fans perceive a criticism, which is what the community is doing, criticizing misleading marketing tactics that have led to people getting harassed, have led to misinformation. This criticism of this is thought to be an attack on the author themselves. And if they can't actually find evidence of the author being attacked for XYZ, they just make it up in your comments. I don't know why you would want to cultivate a following like that. The result is this like automatic collective defense with dozens or hundreds of fans with identical refrains. They're just humans. Stop the bullying. You don't know what they've been through. You're homophobic. Even if all you say is, I don't think this marketing tactic is appropriate or fair to consumers. The repetition is this rhetorical pattern of pity, and it's a mechanism that shifts the conversation away from critical engagement and having a conversation toward like this emotional allegiance to a person who you don't know. But this repetition doesn't feel organic. Again, like it has to come from somewhere, and I don't think it's a room full of monkeys on computers. There's also something to be said about how this repetition, like you told that if you type in keywords into comment sections, a video will go viral. Hey guys, we want this video to go viral. Type in Taylor Swift in the comments so the algorithm picks it up. So in this like social media ecosystem, the more a video is commented on, the more it gets picked up in the algorithm, which is really interesting because in this recent case of pity marketing, again, I did not say the author's names even once. I didn't use hashtags. I didn't have a caption. I don't know why it got picked up by the algorithm, and yet I got flooded with comments and they're all saying the same things, these same repetitive things. And the more they show up, the more this video is breaking containment and ending up in the feeds of people who are coming and doing the exact same thing. Another comment I forgot to mention is people were saying, who even are you? And I'm like, nobody. I'm nobody, and you weren't supposed to see me. I didn't think that this would break containment. Like, is this like, you think you got me? Like, oh, hey, you're nobody. I know. I know that. I'm cool with it. I don't know you either, bud. It was fascinating. Like the repetition, the same arguments being made was so, and just when I think like, oh, this will be the one that doesn't get repeated. Sure enough, a couple hours later, somebody else is making the same comment. Anyway, so the point is, fans come in and they repeat identical defenses and amplify the author's digital presence. So in a way, even though I didn't use hashtags and didn't say their names, I'm still part of it. Like I'm still part of this conversation, and I didn't just stay within my own community where I thought I would stay by, you know, not using hashtags and saying names and such. So in a way, I've become part of the promotional tool of this author. The language of like care has been really interesting, like going back to like, we need to be kind and compassionate. Mental health matters. We need to support creators. We need to support queer people, while you're like yelling at a queer person. It ignores the fact that consumers deserve to not be lied to. So we see this like repetition as this weaponized form of unity, and yet consumers are not the ones being like unified for. Within fandoms and communities in general, there's like linguistic patterns, this like uniformity that signifies loyalty. So again, like going back to Fundyland, I say that I can pick up on somebody is fundy based on what words that they use. And we're taught in fundamentalism that that's just the Holy Spirit, when in fact what we're picking up is on accents. There's like a fundy accent, and there's also like key words that we use. So you're like looking for your people in Fundyland, and you're thinking that you're using the Holy Spirit in order to determine who is your community and who isn't, but really you're just looking for speech patterns. And so in like the speech patterns in this specific case, to repeat the same defense word for word, to have like multiple people coming in and repeating the same things, is them declaring belonging to each other and declaring that they are on the right side of discourse because they're regurgitating the argument that their community told them was correct. This collective echo, though, just completely throws nuance out the window, just completely ignores any nuance. Critics are simply dismissed as haters and jealous. Another example I can give of this, of like a specific author, is a couple years ago, I remember on Threads seeing people talk about how any criticism of Rebecca Yarros, and Taylor Swift for that matter too, any criticism is just misogyny. No, it's not. Sometimes an album is just not to people's taste. Sometimes a book is just not to people's taste. Sometimes it's not misogyny, and you're throwing around words hoping to appear righteous and win the argument while you're throwing nuance out the window. But critics get dismissed as jealous haters, and complex discussions about power dynamics, consumer protection are drowned out by the chorus of defense, or at least that is their hope. And in this case, the repetition of these arguments becomes a disciplinary tool. So they make the argument and then they go in the comment section and they like all of the people who are making the same arguments as them, sort of hoping that you'll feel drowned out by them disciplining you. And they're hoping to enforce conformity through like moralistic language. And what's hilarious is the rhetoric of kindness and the rhetoric of talking about book banning but not actually do anything about it gets frequently invoked and doesn't, like, we don't actually do anything to support those things. They just become a shield against accountability in general. And what sucks is because these rabid fan bases exist and authors will engage in them and even weaponize them sometimes by like resharing any sort of criticism, hoping that the fans will go into the comments. Authors, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, benefit from the spectacle of their defense. And then that performance of pity and loyalty sustains, at least for a short while, an ecosystem where the author and the audience gain from this repetitive cycle of outrage. The audience feels better because they think that they've done something moral, and the author feels better because they have people telling them, oh, we'll defend you no matter what, you're in the right, and they're making money off of it. This repetitive rhetoric that floods comment section, and like next time this happens, you should look for it and you should start like I love observing a pattern. I love it. Next time this happens, observe the pattern in the comment section, see how many people are saying the exact same thing. It's a really interesting thing to observe because it's a symptom of a larger system in which emotion becomes currency. Pity means more publicity, and loyalty to an author becomes labor for rabid fans. But if we can like recognize this repetition, this pattern, and see how it has become weaponized, maybe we can stop ourselves from engaging it, stop our friends from engaging it, and we can learn some better marketing tactics. This digital age with like social media and like the rise of like influencer culture, which again, I am a part of, I understand. I'm not saying it's wholly bad. I'm just saying that sometimes we have responsibilities to like watch what we're doing and saying and how we are cultivating an audience. It's changed not just how we read books in the digital age and with the rise of social media and influencers, but it's also changed how we interact with each other, and we do have to be mindful of that. So my advice is, if you have started to engage in pity marketing, I would stop now. It's gonna not work in the long term. It's gonna cultivate an audience that you really don't want to be cultivating. I don't know what specifically will work to market your book. That's gonna vary from person to person, but my best advice would be find a good community, not one that is just going to echo what you want them to echo, but find other authors to be in community with. I think it's really sad when I see people going it alone, because that's typically who I find is doing pity marketing, is people who are going this alone. And I don't think you have to, and I don't think you should. We're not meant to be alone. Going over media and creating media is better done in community. A couple of friends of mine and we've been working on like a work in progress just for fun. And half of the joy in it is just doing it with other people. And so I think that isn't limited to just writing a book. I think that also can extend to learning how to engage and create an audience and create marketing that works for you. It also just helps to have a group chat to bounce ideas off of, because so many times I've wanted to say something on the internet and I'm like, let me step back a minute and just say it to my group chat. And then maybe I'll feel like I don't actually need to say this on the internet. Maybe I can just complain to my friends, let it go, move on, not make a fool of myself on the internet. So I guess my advice is get a group chat. My advice is always get a group chat. Listen, I don't want authors to fail. I make a lot of rant reviews here, but I do want authors to succeed. We're all living in a, capitalist society, and I want you to be able to pay your bills and eat food and get your kids to the doctor. So even if you are an author who I specifically have witnessed doing pity marketing that it's made me uncomfortable, you can choose to stop now. And I hope that you do, and I hope you find a tactic that is appropriate in its, its reach to consumers, like the way that consumers will consume it. I'm starting to lose my train of thought. I'm getting hungry, sorry. I want consumers to be protected. I want you to be able to pay your bills. I want people to be in community with each other, but pity marketing is not how we get there. And if you are a person who feels the need to defend people on the internet who you know parasocially, I wouldn't do that. Don't do it with me. Don't do it with Sally Joe. Don't do it with anybody. Take a beat, step back. Let's not do that to each other. Think about the community that you've cultivated and the community that you are a part of, and ask yourself if you feel like you maybe are just regurgitating things because they feel good to say. Like, really think about the kind of communities that you want to take part in. Like, what's your end goal here? So ultimately, the answer is, authors, please get group chats with other authors. You can learn so much from your peers. I mean, even in like the book review community, I would not be where I am without my peers. Like, when I had no subscribers and I was building that community, I mean, that's why I am here today, because I was able to create relationships that meant a lot to me and still mean a lot to me to this day. So I would focus on creating relationships with your peers rather than creating a fandom who you want to pity market to and hope will make arguments on your behalf. One of those is substantially better than the other. I'm gonna ask that we don't name specific authors in the comments again and just talk more generally about the idea of pity marketing. If you are interested, by the way, in actually supporting authors whose books have been banned, there are so many resources out there. To run through a few real quick, I am involved with Florida Freedom to Read Project here in Florida, where we have like the most book bans in my county right now. Like 600 titles were removed pending review. But there's also, you can get involved with Unite Against Book Bans. You can get involved with Authors Against Book Bans. I highly, highly recommend that you do so. I have a video where I had authors come on and talk about both their favorite banned books and also authors who've had experiences with being challenged and banned. And so if you're looking for a community on that, if that's happened to you and you want to hear from some authors that's happened to, you're welcome to watch it. I have a whole playlist on book banning, but I highly recommend getting involved in actually advocating against that, because it's bad. It's really bad. And I could talk for a really long time about how the term book banning, the waters have gotten really muddied around that. And I don't appreciate when authors who are doing pity marketing come in and take that term and use it incorrectly, because that only creates an environment in which Moms for Liberty, who I have battled against in several counties here in Florida, and I fucking can't stand them. That's like their whole tactic now, is to muddy the waters around book banning and make it mean whatever they want it to mean. Book banning has a definition, and we do need to apply that, because otherwise, if book banning means whatever, then we can't advocate against it, because we're just sort of like trying to get through muddy water. And that's their point. So like, don't engage in that. Please, I'm begging you to actually use the definition of book banning as it's laid out by the encyclopedia. So if you're interested, there are so many ways that you can get involved in the fight against book banning, and it's not calling other queer people homophobic for saying that, you know, a book that was marketed badly was marketed badly. Book banning is probably a lot closer to home than you think it is. And I do think that you should get involved. See in your local community if there are books being removed. You can find this out through PEN America. If you're in Florida, Florida Freedom to Read Project has a whole spreadsheet on this. Start making content about it. I mean, it's kind of a pain in the ass, because again, that's actually a great, oh shit, I didn't even think about this. This is a great example of repetition. Oh no, I see, this is what happens when I don't script. This is a good example of repetition, because the arguments that I get on my book banning videos are always exactly the same things. We're not trying to ban books, we're just trying to remove inappropriate books from school libraries. Not true. That's not book banning. Book banning is only when a book is made wholly unavailable at the federal level, not according to the encyclopedia. Or they come in and they're just like, okay, groomer. And I'm like, what the fuck? How is this grooming? What are we talking about? Yeah, so that's a really good example of a community that weaponizes repetition of language that they heard in their little groups. I can't believe I forgot about that. See, this is why I need to script. All right, thanks so much for watching. Leave your comments and questions down below. If you made it this far, you can leave a, I don't know, You can leave a rainbow because I'm also gay. Don't you forget it. Or leave the title of your favorite queer banned book down below if you don't want to leave a rainbow. Or leave both. I don't care. It's up to you. Do what you want on the internet. I'm a mother, but I'm not yours. Okay. See you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons. I will say that these no longer show up on Patreon in alphabetical order, so sorry about that. And those thank yous go to Lex, SJ, Eric, Peggy Lou, Quinn, Rain, Scarlett, John E, Alexander, Samar, Ashley H, DJ Rocktopus, Kaleno K, Emerald Dodge, Ellie, Minby, Steph B, Lemon Jelly, Mixer Boneless, Lily, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Lady Chips Loves Pride, Call Me Kodiak, Ree Mirage, Katya, Melissa, Kai Brecker has not read 6 of Crows, Lex, Megwin, Maddie Miss, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Jory, Piloting SRN, Bex, Fox Waifu, Charlie Bear, Ricky Strong. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And a quick thank you to my Potato Starch Marxists, Evie, Carlin, Paige P, Sean, Sarah the Bear, Jill, Talia, Corwin, Andy Mations, Darren, Tito Phoenix, Might Be a Magpie, Martin, Artie the Ninth, Hannah C, Shamed, Ava, Malara, Rachel B, Rebecca, Baywing, Amanda, Lustful Octopus, Lady Kittybug, Angelica, Jenny G, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Laughing Cat Dog, Dorothea supports public education, Nicole G, Colleen, Sarah H, Sheen Onion, Fox Club, Danielle M, Kendra, Sakoria, Kayala, Sadie Selby, Bookish Rabbit, Caitlin M, Rosie Thorns, Penny Chilling, Katie L, Lou Siri, Aaron with 2 E's, Jen Michelle, LP, Jojo Bookish, Jessa Sue, Lazarus Ray, Casper, Genderqueer, Jelly V, Lauren G, Man-Eating Plant, Kate W, Saki Alume, Lindsay M, Gadarn, Dilf Enthusiast, KMTV, Kaylee Carpenter, Alejandra, Desiree Michelle, Darius, Triple M, Saintbringer, Bookish B, Bookish by Jenna, Althea, Megan, Francis, Kate B, Plague Carrier, Jackalope Max, Queen Cereal, Pandemonium, Mataraptor, Rosemary K, Drive By Thinker, Juicy Wizard, Sophie L, Barry B, I Like My Women Like I Like My Books Thick, Mima Who, Katrina, Unicorn Jenny, That One Cute Chick, Harassing, Myth Lesbian, This Is Not a Trap, Laura is Angry, Rhea Slagle, Morgan, Celeste, Macy Jane, Aaron S, Danita M, Cosmic Frog, Jesse, Rach, Kayla Alexander Kenny, Ren, Natural Blues, NM Rap, Che, Jing, Katuary, Taz, Miss Fox and Arda, Mac, Junie for Now, Gabby Z, T Foxbones, Pi, Adian, Mia, Fishy Fish, Chloe M, Luke has sleep token brain rot, hell yeah. Kath, Kellen R, Blubbles the Fish, Cass Plays, Jesse M. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.